As the days in the virtual world went by, Ethan found himself losing track of time. Luna became the highlight of his every evening, her laughter, her ideas, the way she talked about art, and her strange obsession with sunsets. Every time they logged into Dreamverse, she appeared in a new outfit, glowing with style and confidence. She was everything he had ever dreamed of but never found in real life: perfect, kind, and understanding. They built their own little digital world, a small floating house above the virtual clouds, where they would sit together, legs dangling over the edge, talking about their futures. Luna often said she wanted to open a real fashion brand someday, inspired by her virtual designs. Ethan even started coding a small VR boutique for her as a surprise. He was convinced this was real love, even if they had never met. One night, as they stood under a simulated aurora of glowing lights, Luna whispered, "Ethan, there's something about me you wouldn't understand yet." Ethan smiled softly. "You always say that. You know I don't care how you look in real life." She fell silent for a moment, then said, "Promise me you'll remember that when we finally meet." He promised. After 6 months of endless chats, shared dreams, and laughter, Ethan felt ready. He wanted to make it real. "Luna," he said one night, "let's meet in person. I need to see you for real." There was a long pause, then a trembling voice replied, "Are you sure? The real world isn't as perfect as Dreamverse." Ethan chuckled. "That's fine. I don't need perfect." Luna hesitated again, then finally agreed. They planned to meet at a cafe called the Blue Star, a cozy spot with big windows and soft music. On the morning of the meeting, Ethan could barely breathe. He looked at himself in the mirror, straightened his shirt, and grabbed a bouquet of roses. His palms were sweating as he approached the cafe. Every second felt like an eternity. He scanned the room, expecting to see the stunning woman from the photos, the one with sharp features, bright eyes, and that effortless elegance. But instead, sitting in the corner was a woman smiling nervously, clutching a small purse. She wore a hoodie that said "Be Real." Her face looked kind, but different, and her body was far larger than he could have imagined, easily weighing around 500 pounds. Ethan froze. His brain tried to match the voice he'd heard for months to the face before him. It clicked, it was Luna. Or rather, Sarah, her real name. She waved shyly, her cheeks red. "Hi, Ethan. It's me." Ethan forced a smile, his heart pounding. "Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting, it's nice to finally meet you." He sat down, trying to collect himself. The silence was heavy until Sarah laughed softly, breaking it. "You don't have to pretend to be okay. I know I don't look like the girl from the pictures." Ethan hesitated, unsure what to say. Then the waiter arrived, and things turned awkwardly funny. The chair squeaked loudly under her, and she joked, "Guess the real world doesn't have weight settings." Ethan laughed nervously, and the tension eased. They talked for hours. Sarah was hilarious, honest, and surprisingly confident. She told him how she created Luna because she wanted to know what love felt like without judgment. "In Dreamverse," she said, "I was light, beautiful, unstoppable. But this," she looked at her hands, "this is what people see first." Ethan listened quietly. Part of him was angry that she lied, but another part couldn't deny the connection they had built. That night, when Ethan got home, he couldn't stop thinking about her. The betrayal stung. All those months he thought he knew her. He opened their old VR chats, scrolling through her filtered photos, and whispered to himself, "Why didn't you trust me with the truth?" For weeks, he ignored her calls and messages. Then, one evening, he received a final message from her. "I'm sorry I lied. You made me feel seen for the first time. Maybe one day I'll be brave enough to meet you again as me." The next day, her Dreamverse profile disappeared. She deleted everything. Months passed. Ethan returned to his lonely routines, but something inside him had changed. He stopped using filters on his own photos. He became more aware of how fake everything online had become. One day, while walking through the city, he saw a poster for a photography exhibit titled "The Virtual Lie." Out of curiosity, he went inside. To his shock, the artist standing by the photos was Sarah. She looked different, still big, but radiant, confident, alive. She had turned their story into art. Portraits of people who hid behind avatars, each one titled with a truth they had been afraid to show. When she saw Ethan, her eyes widened, then softened. "You came," she said quietly. He smiled, holding back emotion. "You deleted your VR world." She nodded. "Because I found a better one, this one." They stood there, surrounded by images of truth and imperfection. For the first time, Ethan realized that love wasn't about the body or the fantasy, it was about honesty. He took her hand, not out of pity, but out of recognition. They both had been hiding in pixels, afraid of being real. Ethan sits down slowly, trying to keep his composure. The chair creaks under Sarah's weight, and a small laugh escapes her lips. "Guess the real world doesn't come with gravity settings," she jokes, her eyes sparkling with nervous humor. Ethan chuckles awkwardly, the tension slightly easing, though his mind is still racing. He keeps thinking about all the virtual photos, the flawless Luna, the dream version of her that had lived in his imagination for months. They order coffee, and Sarah surprises him by being surprisingly witty and animated. She tells stories of her childhood, her love for fashion, and how she had always been underestimated because of her size. Ethan finds himself genuinely laughing, forgetting for a moment the shock he felt the moment he saw her. He notices her hands, how expressive they are, how alive her gestures make her seem, and slowly he realizes that the connection he felt in VR wasn't fake, it had just taken a different form in reality. As they talk, passers-by glance at them, but Sarah doesn't flinch. "You know," she says, leaning in, "I was terrified you'd hate me, or think less of me. But I couldn't stay hidden in Dreamverse forever. I wanted to be real, even if it scared you." Ethan nods, feeling a mix of guilt and admiration. I won't lie, it was a shock," he admits. "But talking to you now, it doesn't feel wrong. You're still amazing." The conversation flows for hours, and Ethan finds himself forgetting about the images that had once dominated his mind. He notices the warmth in Sarah's smile, the kindness in her voice, the humor that shines through even in awkward moments. They discuss their favorite music, movies, and dreams for the future. Each laugh, each story, each genuine glance slowly chips away at the walls of disbelief he had built around himself. As the afternoon sun streams through the cafe windows, they share a quiet moment, sipping coffee. Ethan's mind drifts back to the countless nights in VR, the digital beaches, the glowing skies, and the laughter that had felt so real. And now, sitting across from Sarah, he realizes that even though she is different from the Luna he imagined, the connection is stronger because it's real. Suddenly, Sarah grows quiet, fiddling with her necklace, the same one from the VR world. "Ethan, I need to tell you something," she says softly, her voice trembling slightly. "Every photo I sent you, every perfect image, it was altered. I wanted you to see the me I thought you would like. I wasn't brave enough to show you the real me at first." Ethan's chest tightens. The honesty hits him, but surprisingly, it doesn't feel like betrayal anymore. Instead, he feels relief that the truth is finally out. "I appreciate you telling me," he says carefully. "It would have been harder if I didn't know. Honestly, you being real now matters more than anything else. It's what I fell in love with, not the images." Sarah's eyes glisten with tears, but she smiles. "You really mean that?" Ethan nods, his hand reaching across the table to touch hers. "Yes. The connection we built, that's the real part. Everything else was just decoration." Time passes unnoticed. Outside, the sun sets, painting the city in warm golden light. For the first time, Ethan feels free from the illusions that had bound him. They laugh, they share memories, and Ethan even teases her gently about some of her VR quirks, which makes Sarah laugh until her cheeks ache. It's awkward, it's funny, it's emotional, and it's real. When the cafe begins to empty, neither wants the day to end. Ethan suggests a walk, and together they step out into the evening streets. The lights of the city reflect in Sarah's eyes, and Ethan realizes that reality, messy, unpredictable, imperfect, is infinitely more beautiful than any virtual dream. Hand in hand, they walk, sharing stories, jokes, and quiet moments, each step cementing a connection that no simulation could ever replicate. As the conversation continues, the awkwardness begins to melt away completely. Sarah leans back in her chair, still chuckling at her own jokes, and Ethan realizes how easy it is to talk to her despite the initial shock. She describes the creative ways she designed Luna's avatar, every outfit, every accessory carefully chosen to reflect the confidence she wished she could carry in real life. Ethan listens intently, captivated not by her appearance but by her creativity, her humor, and the depth of her thoughts. At one point, a small child runs past their table, bumping into Ethan's leg. He jumps, startled, and Sarah bursts into laughter, pointing at him. "See? Real life has its own little glitches," she teases. Ethan laughs too, the sound coming easier now, lighter than it has in months. He notices the way her eyes sparkle when she smiles, how genuine her laughter is, how magnetic her presence feels even without any virtual filters. They move on to more personal topics: her dreams, her fears, the moment she felt most misunderstood. Ethan shares some of his own insecurities, his quiet loneliness before he discovered Dreamverse. For the first time in months, he feels completely unguarded. He realizes that what mattered wasn't the fantasy of Luna, it was the real connection they've built through countless nights of shared jokes, adventures, and late-night confessions. The waiter interrupts briefly to bring a dessert platter, and Sarah playfully debates whether they should share a chocolate cake or try 3 different slices. Ethan finds himself smiling at her enthusiasm, amused by her boldness and charm. Each anecdote, each laugh, chips away at the disbelief he had when he first saw her. Slowly, he begins to see past the numbers on a scale, past the images he once held in his mind, and straight to the person who had captured his heart long before they met face to face. Hours pass, and soon the cafe is nearly empty. Sarah stretches, pretending to yawn dramatically. "I think Dreamverse could never compete with this," she says with a grin. Ethan nods, realizing she is right. The virtual beaches, the glowing skies, the perfect avatar, they were just a prelude to something far more real and meaningful. As they prepare to leave, Ethan feels a warmth he hasn't felt in a long time, a mix of relief, admiration, and genuine affection. Walking out into the evening, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement, he takes a deep breath. For the first time, the world doesn't feel overwhelming or intimidating, it feels alive, and he feels alive in it too, hand in hand with someone who has taught him the true meaning of connection. Ethan stares at the notification, his chest tight, a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion swirling inside him. The world he had shared with Luna, the digital nights filled with laughter and dreams, feels suddenly empty, hollow, like a stage after the actors have left. He reopens his messages from Sarah, reading each one again and again, feeling the weight of the honesty he had refused to accept. She wasn't asking for forgiveness, she was explaining, and yet he can't decide if he's more hurt by the lies or by the sudden absence of the connection that had become his lifeline. Days turn into weeks, and Ethan drifts through his routines like a ghost. He tries to focus on work, on coding, on anything that might keep his mind from replaying the memories of her voice, her laughter, the way she had shared small details of her world that no one else knew. But every time he closes his eyes, he sees her avatar, sees her standing in the virtual clouds, smiling at him with a perfection he knows he will never find in reality. The emptiness gnaws at him, and for the first time, he feels the fragility of a love built on illusions. Late one night, unable to sleep, he takes a long walk through the city streets, the neon lights reflecting off wet pavement. His phone vibrates in his pocket, a single message, no sender. "Ethan, I hope one day you understand." His breath catches. He knows it's Sarah. He doesn't respond immediately. He keeps walking, feeling the cool night air against his skin, thinking about how he had fallen in love not with a perfect image, but with the person she had tried to hide. Weeks later, a package arrives at his apartment. Inside is a small box, and in it, a handwritten note along with a single photograph. The note reads, "You said connection mattered more than looks. I believed you. I've stepped into the real world now, truly. Maybe one day, we'll meet again. Sarah." The photograph shows her smiling, genuine and unaltered, standing in front of a modest art studio. For the first time, Ethan feels a flicker of hope, a thread connecting the fragments of his broken trust to something real, something tangible. That evening, he sits alone, looking at the photo, imagining what it would be like to walk through the doors of that studio, to finally meet Sarah not as Luna, not as a digital fantasy, but as the full, authentic woman she is. His heart beats faster, not with the fantasy he once chased, but with anticipation for the real journey ahead. He knows now that love, the kind that lasts, is never perfect, never filtered, never simulated. It's raw, messy, and human. And maybe, just maybe, it's worth waiting for the day when reality finally matches the connection he's been longing for. Ethan feels a rush of emotions as he approaches Sarah at the exhibition surprise. Relief, admiration, and something deeper he can't quite name. Her presence is magnetic. There's no pretense, no digital veil, just the warmth and confidence of someone who has fully embraced herself. He notices the subtle details. The way her eyes crinkle when she smiles, the gentle rhythm of her laugh, the spark of creativity that seems to surround her like a halo. It hits him that the woman standing in front of him is even more captivating than the perfect avatar he had once adored in VR. They wander through the gallery together, examining the portraits, each photograph telling a story of someone who had hidden behind digital illusions. Sarah explains her process, the courage it took to photograph people as they truly are, capturing their strengths, vulnerabilities, and unfiltered beauty. Ethan listens, enraptured not only by her talent but by the authenticity she radiates. He realizes that the love he had felt in VR was never about the pixels or the perfection, it had always been about connection, about understanding another person's soul. They pause before a photograph that feels familiar. It's a candid shot of Sarah laughing at the Blue Star Cafe, exactly as he remembered her that first meeting. He reaches out instinctively, touching the frame lightly. "I can't believe you captured that moment," he says softly. Sarah smiles, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It was real, Ethan. That day was real. And so are we now." As the evening winds down, they step outside into the cool night air. The city hums around them, alive with lights and distant sounds, but it feels intimate, as if the world has narrowed just to the two of them. They walk side by side, talking, joking, and occasionally laughing so hard it echoes off the walls of the surrounding buildings. Ethan realizes that the fear, the awkwardness, and the heartbreak of the past year have all led to this moment a chance to love fully, without filters, without illusions, without the safety of a virtual world. They find a quiet bench near the park and sit, letting the conversation fade into comfortable silence. The stars above, faint behind the city glow, remind Ethan of the virtual skies they had once painted together. But tonight, the world feels infinitely more vibrant, alive with the unpredictability and imperfection of reality. He looks at Sarah, truly sees her for who she is, and for the first time, he doesn't want her to be anyone else. She is everything he needs. Sarah leans her head slightly toward him, and he feels a quiet, profound peace settle over him. "I never imagined the real world could feel this magical," she whispers. Ethan smiles, brushing his fingers lightly over hers. "It's always been magic," he says. We had to step out of the VR sky to see it." They walk home together under the streetlights, hand in hand, the weight of the past lifted, replaced by a connection deeper than any digital fantasy. No avatars, no filters, no illusions, just two people, fully themselves, discovering that reality, with all its flaws and surprises, can be far more extraordinary than any world they could have imagined. And in that shared journey, they both finally understand that love is not about perfection, but about embracing truth, vulnerability, and the courage to show oneself fully.